You are listening to the Legacy Radio Network. I'm Dennis Tubbergen, and this is the Everything Financial Radio Show. Glad you're with us today. Chatting with Mr. Jim Babka, president of Downsize DC Foundation, and he has heads up, I should say, a very, very interesting organization, certainly trying to restore common sense to national policy. And, Jim, because we have just 8 minutes, I want to jump right in. We talked about the Read the Bills Act in the last segment, but you had mentioned that this next idea has actually been introduced in one house of Congress. It's called the One Subject at a Time Act. Can you give us the background and what the objective of this particular initiative is?
Well, 45 states in this country have laws. In fact, more than 40 of them are in their state constitutions that limit the size of bills to one subject. The One Subject at a Time Act says that every bill has to have a clear, descriptive title. No more of these marketing, these sham titles that they give us that don't really tell us what's in the bill. They have to clearly define what's in the bill. There's not going to be the Happy, Awesome, Freedom for Children of Patriots with Health Care Act of 2012. It's going to have to state exactly what is the one subject of the bill. And then, there's a committee structure in there. Without getting too much into the weeds, we say that it's basically the work of a committee that we're talking about here. And so we try to define what the subject is, and we say that they're limited to that one subject, and we include the same provision that we had for the Read the Bills Act, that if they didn't follow the procedure, that you can take your case to the court and say, listen, Judge, they didn't follow, the Congress didn't follow the procedure. They passed more than one subject. We were inspired to do this for things like an emergency troop appropriation for the troops in Iraq that included tsunami relief and the Real ID Act, which still hasn't been implemented in half the states in this country because the people didn't want it in the first place. It was a bill that had been repeatedly defeated. I grew up watching Schoolhouse Rock on Saturday morning cartoons, and we were told that a bill was passed by a majority in that little jingle, and that's just not true. There's so many laws that are passed in this country that aren't passed with a majority. We woke up another morning to find out that a port security bill included an internet gaming prohibition that was targeted at online poker players. It's this kind of nonsense. It shouldn't occur, and we want to contain the bills to one subject so there can actually be a debate on it. Now, I happen to have a lot of Republican friends who over the years have told me the president should have a line-item veto. There's no such provision in the Constitution. Our founding fathers didn't want to give the executive that much power. Their expectation, the original way the republic was supposed to work, was that one piece of legislation at a time went to the president, and he could veto that legislation. So if you really want a true line item, the best way to get it is to limit the number of topics in the bill that are sent to the president, and then he can make a ruling up or down whether or not such a bill should pass into law.
So Jim, tell us where this bill is currently, and what the timing might be potentially, and what are the chances this actually becomes a law? From where I sit, the way you've explained it, it sure makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, well, no, we're excited because we've got a congressman who seems to want to advocate for it, and he just sponsored it. It took a long time to get this ball rolling, but he's a freshman Republican out of Pennsylvania. His name's Tom Marino. He introduced the bill late last month, and already we are aware, and we think before this month is out or the next, hopefully, we will pick up an additional 2 sponsors. I already know who their names are. I'm hoping that that's going to be the case. It looks like one's definite and the other's very, very close. And we want to continue to expand that. And I want to just briefly tell the story of how we got this sponsor because it goes right to the heart of our strategy. I went and spoke to a Tea Party in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. Williamsport is the home of the Little League World Series. And on the weekend of the Little League World Series a couple of years back, at the height of the Tea Party frenzy, they held a Tea Party rally and drove 4,000 people in Williamsport, Pennsylvania. I spoke to a crowd of 4,000 people. I wasn't the only one. There were others there, too. But I spoke to that crowd and began to get the idea out. The leaders of that group decided that they didn't want to get in bed with a particular political candidate or party. They didn't want to be co-opted by politicians. They told the politicians, we're not going to endorse you. It's time you endorse us and our principles. And so they set a handful of things, just 5 or 6 things that they wanted to accomplish in front of their local representatives, and said, these are the things that matter to us. This is how we're going to grade you. And 2 of the things on that list were the Read the Bills Act and the One Subject at a Time Act. And through their efforts and their initiative and their pressure, they were able to compel and persuade their local representative. And potentially one of our earliest co-sponsors is also going to come from the neighboring congressional district. So this activity, this concentrated activity in their district is what made the difference, and that is the way we're going to get this done. We're trying to make that kind of activity happen elsewhere around the country. We're looking for partners to work with in various areas who want to make this a priority, and so I encourage them to contact us if they're a leader in a local Tea Party or activist group, to contact us at downsizedc.org. We're willing to help you get this done.
Jim, very interesting. Can you talk some more about now? Your organization really doesn't have any political affiliation. You're completely independent,
right,
as I understand it. Can you talk some more? We've got maybe 2.5 minutes or so left. Can you talk some more about big picture, some of your items? I know I was looking at your website, and one of the initiatives that you are really trying to target is stop raising the debt ceiling. We're stealing from our children and grandchildren. Can you talk a bit about that?
Yeah, it's interesting. There was, you being in the financial community know this as well as anybody, that there was talk that if, they didn't raise the debt ceiling, that there was going to be economic cataclysm, that everything would come apart at the seams, that this was a terrible, terrible event. But companies all the time run up against the wall where no longer can they get or do they desire to attain credit. They just have to simply make some cutbacks. Even if they had big plans and expenditures in the works, they have to go into reorganization. And they begin talking to their creditors and those that don't deal with them. Maybe they even consider bankruptcy, but they do something to reorganize their situation. And so we believe that the budget should be frozen. It should start to be scaled back, and the debt should be paid. And so we fight for that at budget time. And when the debt ceiling debate comes up, we think that the debt ceiling should be capped. And if this is all these politicians that are proposing that we need a balanced budget amendment, are going for a much more difficult solution that's way in the future with a low likelihood of success and will probably be violated by the Congress anyway, when right in front of them sits the ultimate balanced budget tool, which is to simply cap the debt. And we're saying no more. Stop the borrowing. Just stop it now. And we're taking advantage of that opportunity and that message in that moment to get that point across, to reorganize it, as it were.
Well, certainly it makes a lot of sense. And from an economic perspective, the debt and the policies that are in place to service the debt and keeping interest rates low, certainly that affects a lot of people and their money and how it's managed. And from the people I talk to, Jim, I think that there is a good opportunity to move that whole issue forward. I would assume you're getting a lot of traction with that issue, certainly a lot of interest.
Yeah, we got a lot of interest last summer when that debate was at its peak. We bought some ads on the web and tried to get the word out on our stand, and we felt like we were taking a fairly unique stand, unfortunately, that there were a lot of people maybe who were scared of taking this particular stand or suggesting that, the money had already been spent, so we had to raise the debt ceiling. There were a lot of Republicans, some who even were elected in the Tea Party movement, that were suggesting, well, the money's already been spent, and we've got to just, keep moving forward, and maybe if we get more Republicans elected, we can solve this. But it doesn't seem to matter how many Republicans we have. We've had Republican majorities before, and the federal government ballooned, and the deficit expanded, and so we simply just need to begin to arrest this as much as possible. It really is going to require a movement of the people who do not tolerate either party behaving in the way it's been behaving.
Jim, we're going to have to leave it there. Thanks for joining us. Hope you'll come back.
I would love to come back.
This is Everything Financial Radio. Stay with us. We'll return after these words.